We've been talking about the homeless situation in the city now for a while. This administration has made it a point to say, yes, we recognize that it's there. We want to be able to make things better. They undertook a big count, if you will, of the homeless a long time ago. And now we're finding out from people who deal with the homeless population in the city that that data has not even yet been released to them, which doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense.
No sense.
Why would the city hold on to this? What would be the purpose of it and not share it with the people who deal with these people on a first-come, first-served basis? James Hughes, the CEO of the Old Brewery Mission. He's on the line right now. James, thanks for being here today.
Oh, very happy to be with you.
Have I misstated this? I mean, this is data they have. Why do you think they're not sharing it?
Okay, so first of all, the data is actually being collected by the health authorities. It wasn't the City of Montreal that was leading the charge. In fact, the point-in-time count was done by every regional health authority right across the province last fall. So that part you're absolutely right upon, that it's been a while. It's coming up to about 10 months since the actual data was gathered. And we are expecting it in the next few months. We were told it probably would take up to a year. The previous point-in-time count that was done in 2018 also took about that same amount of time. We think that's a lot of time, but we also accept that this is real science. There's thousands and thousands of interviews that were carried out by people who went out into the street to do the count. It's not just counting 1, 2, 3. It's actually having an engagement with people who are homeless and finding out why they're there, how long they've been there, what their hopes are, what their needs are. And so it does take time to gather all that information and produce a report that is meaningful and useful.
Okay, so that's the first frustration, that it takes this long. But in the interim, you're still trying to do the work, James. So how does this sort of prevent you from doing what you need to do or really having a grasp of what the real situation is?
Yeah, well, thanks, Natasha. That's exactly it. We can't stop. You know, we've been doing this work, Old Brewery, for a long time, the other organizations as well, and we have seen on the ground the numbers going up. And, we're full in our men's facilities, our women's facilities, our Hotel GF facility. We're full all the time. The other organizations are as well. We're seeing more encampments because of a housing crisis, because the shelters are full. We're seeing more opioid problems than we ever had before, drug poisoning, naloxone. It's a really tough time in homelessness right now in the city. But what is actually happening from a scientific point of view? That is, what are the trends? What are the numbers? And what are the needs? We have all these anecdotal information, organizational information, but we have no way of getting our arms around all of it. And so what the point-in-time count does is going to give us the kind of information, the kind of research that's going to be able to generate policy and hopefully divert resources from one place where it may be unnecessary and put it in the places where it is necessary. But we know some of the things, right? Housing. We need housing for extremely poor people in big numbers. We don't have that, but to what extent the count will help us in terms of interventions with people with fentanyl problems. We'll have a better idea of what kind of resources will be necessary in that regard as well, and so on. So this will be really helpful to us, but more particularly to the government, as it allocates the right resources to meet the needs.
So I'll apologize to the city for having said Montreal. You point out this was done province-wide, so it's not fair to point a finger specifically at the city. Do you think the city of Montreal is, in fact, doing what it can and helping in the way they said they want to help? The mayor's talked about this a bunch of times.
Well, the mayor really has a heart in this. There's no question. The kinds of interventions that they're doing right now through the police force, the police are getting very engaged in this issue in a much better way than they have before. Not perfect by any means. The way in which they're now retaking certain rooming houses as well through rights of preemption and try to make them available as new housing units for homeless people, I think is terrific. The work they're doing around Airbnb as well and trying to put limits on that affordable housing being used for Airbnb, I think is a really good initiative as well. So things are being done, but the problem is that the numbers keep going up. All of these measures together are not having the impact it should have. In 2018, the number was about 3,000 people, a little over 3,000 people. That was already up from 2015, from the previous street count. Everyone's expecting it to be between 4,000 and 5,000 people who are homeless tonight in Montreal, and maybe more. That's what the street count information is going to give us. It's this sense of how big the problem has become, and that's invaluable.
Okay. I have to say, so we're speaking with James Hughes, CEO of the Old Brewery Mission. As I'm listening to that, I'm going to ask a blunt and perhaps kind of naive question, but you're on the ground. You have a very good sense of what the situation is, as do other people working with our homeless population. Do we really need the numbers to tell you that the situation has gotten worse? We know it's worse. Let's just get to work on trying to deal with it.
Well, you're absolutely right, Natasha. We do know that we need more resources, especially housing. We need all kinds of new types of housing, in my view, controlled by municipal authorities or controlled by organizations like Old Brewery, because we can ensure that people who are in extreme poverty and homelessness can get that housing, relying entirely upon the private sector, not entirely, but mostly upon the private sector through rent supplement programs, is not working. We're starting to see that it's getting harder and harder in this housing market to make that work. So, you're absolutely right. Let's get big investments going, not in the hundreds of units, but in the thousands of units for this clientele, controlled by the nonprofits who will serve the people for the long term in a way that the private sector won't.
James, it seems to me just a few weeks ago I read a story, I think it was one of the French papers, talking about the fact or doing a count of how many abandoned buildings the city of Montreal actually owns and have been sitting empty with nothing being done in them for the longest time. And you kind of wonder, if they were to take those buildings back, rehabilitate them, would they not be a good place for people to be able to find a place to live?
You're absolutely right. The number of housing units actually currently controlled by municipal authorities, by provincial authorities, is quite significant. I don't know what those numbers are, but I know out in NDG where I live, an organization, Project Chance, there's a building there that's been unused for many years. The problem is investments. We need to make investments in getting those buildings up to standard, cleaning out the mold, renovating them where necessary, and making them available to the vulnerable people of this city who need it. And not just the vulnerable people that are in the shelters, in those encampments. Those are also places where we can work with people to get them housed if we had the housing. So to Natasha's point, should we get right to it? We absolutely should, and we should do it with ambition, with muscularity, not in small ways, but in big ways.
Let's hope the city is listening. I like the fact that the data is, and as you said, you were expecting it would take a while, but it is coming. And hopefully the city, outside of talking a good game, will actually follow through, because it seems ridiculous. You mentioned this one in NDG. We had a caller on once who pointed this out. Buildings sitting empty, doing nothing, owned by the city, such a complete waste of a resource. Let's hope that begins to change. James, thanks so much.
Well, thank you so much.
You bet.